Yeah. James Wan, everyone. Yeah, there you go. Nice to see you, sir. I think you actually sit here, according to Leigh Whannell, who wrote and starred in the film. We've also got the director of photography, David Armstrong.
David!
And producers Mark Burg and Oren Koules.
Oh my God, this is right. Oh, really? Cool.
And of course, we have some cast. We have Dr. Lawrence Gordon, Cary Elwes. We have Amanda, played by Shawnee Smith. And that's it. No, we have Jigsaw, played by Tobin Bell as well. Yeah. So James and Leigh, what's it like for you guys, like celebrating the 10th anniversary of this movie? This started everything for you, and watching it now, just watching the last 5 minutes, it fucking still works. So how is it just, how did it kickstart your career, and how is it watching the whole thing kind of play out here? Yeah.
It's been incredible. Yeah. Leigh and I have always said that we never expected this small little movie that we made would go on to be as big as it ended up becoming. And we're always very grateful for what it has done for us, and grateful to this team sitting up here with us right now for letting us make this movie the way it is. And always very thankful for all of that. And the fact that we're all still friends after all these years is amazing.
Yeah, the weird thing is how it's resonated, because obviously a lot of films come out and a lot don't do well, but a lot do well. There's a lot of successful films coming out every weekend. The weird thing is that it's resonated. Like, I think plenty of films are successful, but not many films sort of resonate the way that Friday the 13th or these films that have a legacy in it. Not just horror films, but like a film like Ghostbusters or Stand By Me. Just these films that people are still talking about a decade or more later is kind of a pretty rare club. So it is weird that Saw is in that club of films that people still talk about 10 years later, and probably 20 years from now, when there's that history book that just has photos of, like, when you flick to, JFK assassination, land on the moon, it'll get to 2005 and there'll be a photo of that puppet. It'll just be like, here's what came out in cinemas in 2005. This will be like some kid with a jetpack in 2089.
That's a very sad history book.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he'll be in there. That puppet will be in there. It won't be any of us.
It all led to the dawn of Saw.
But I think that's testament to the concept that we came up with, and the fact that it kind of connected with the audience. And I think at the time I heard a lot of people saying just how much they thought if that was them in that situation, what would they do? And I think that is what made the movie plate the way it did.
Well, even 10 years later, watching that end scene, it's still a big holy shit moment for me. When you guys were creating it, I mean, where was the holy shit moment for you? Where was the point where you were guys like, we have something. We have something that you cannot deny.
Definitely not when I was shooting it. Not when I was shooting it, or not when I was putting it together.
When you had the story, did you have a moment?
I think in the writing, I mean, what's weird about it is I met James at film school at RMIT in Melbourne, and it was like this super artsy film school, and we were the only guys at this, basically, that were into like Evil Dead. And everyone else was discussing last year at Marienbad at great length. And we were like in the corner, like snuff film dealers, like, oh, how good was Evil Dead? And so when we finished film school, we like continued working together, and we finally realized that, especially in Australia, to get a film made, we would need to pay for it ourselves. And most funding for movies in Australia comes from the government. Like, the government gives you a check and goes, go write this film. Here's, $2 million, but they were making films like Muriel's Wedding. It was like they weren't making Saw. And so we finally realized we're going to have to make a film that we're going to pay for it ourselves. We can probably maybe save up $10,000. What's a story that you could shoot for $10,000? 2 people in one room. And we spent a long time trying to come up with I think the smaller the confines, the better the idea has to be. Like the more like Paranormal Activity, it's set in this bedroom, but the idea is so strong. It's like a couple filming themselves, shooting themselves on video while they sleep. Like, and even back then, we were really pushing ourselves to come up with this hook. And it took like the best part of a year, like just pitching each other ideas. No, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. And to answer your question, I remember the day that James called and he kind of pitched me this vague idea. He's like, okay, 2 guys wake up in this bathroom and there's a dead body in the middle. And they don't know how they got in the room. And at the end, the dead body stands up and it's him that put him there. And
Yep.
And
I'm like, I think I have the
That's
seed.
good. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, I think I had the seed of an idea. I'm not quite sure what it could be, but I think it could be really cool. And so Leigh's like, okay. He hangs up. Like half an hour later, he calls me back and goes, I think the title should be called Saw.
But the reason I said that, I think it was more like 10 minutes later. Like, I remember hanging up the phone and I was walking around, and I mean, you know, I'm not a very spiritual person, let's put it that way. I don't believe in any, but I literally, it was like this weird, something just hit me like, that's it, that's the idea. And earlier that day, before James called me, I had sketched in one of my notebooks Saw, just randomly the word Saw dripping with blood in red. I still have it. And I was looking at it and I was like, yeah, that's the title of a film. And 10 minutes after he called me, I was just like really overwhelmed, even thinking about it. And I just called him back and I was like, that's the film, that's the one we're doing. And it's going to be called Saw. And it was like one of those examples in life, whether you believe in this sort of stuff or not, where it's like, it's like...
It's serendipity.
This real serendipity of like, it just dropped on us both. It was like, yes, this is what we have to do. It's going to be about this. And it's just sort of... So to answer your question, we always believed in it.
Some people would call it serendipity.
Right, yeah.
What would you call it?
There's some force, some higher force.
The Force.
That's always there, and moving the same way as the planets.
As a saw blade.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, yeah, there is sort of a zeitgeist or something floating, but it was just like so clear that this was what we should do. So when
Where
you say
was
like,
Mark
when
and
did you
Oren
feel
that
it?
day?
Well, yeah, I want to get
This
to
was
Mark and
a
Oren.
year before we met these
Yeah,
guys.
where
We never talked about. So how long was it till you, from that moment, till you sat in our conference room?
Much to James's chagrin, it took me a year to write the first draft because I had a job and I was lazy and I had no idea what I was doing. So those three, and I had a girlfriend that ruled my life. Her command was my instant, like, so when you combine those 4 things, it took me a year, and I gave...
It was very frustrating. I was like, Leigh, you're going to have to drop one of those.
Yeah, exactly. Lose the girlfriend or the job. And I remember I gave you the first draft of the script just before he got on a plane to fly to Perth on the other side of Australia for Christmas. He was going to visit his family, and I just got it to him, like, you know, a few hours before he got on the plane. I was like...
But when you had to print scripts out and put the brads in and hand them off, and that's a whole fucking
the
pain
old
in the
school
ass.
way, yes.
Yeah, this was
and
real
over
old school.
2003, but that back when it was, yeah.
It was all formatted wrongly, and I remember going to this the Australian equivalent of like a Staples and getting this guy to like punch holes in it and put it together. Gave it to James, and like he flies, the equivalent of flying like LA to New York. And I remember it was Christmas, so I was at my dad's house, and the phone rang, and I guess he just got off the plane and he'd read it on the plane, and he was like, "Dude, it's awesome!" Like it was so good to after that long of a wait. He was so excited.
How long was it? Do you remember?
It was about a year. Leigh took about a year off to go write the script, which at the end of the day is very important. I think if you're a standing
Everyone
film,
here's like, it took a year to write that. I could have written that in 2 hours.
could have written that in my toilet break.
A lot of distractions, all
And
right.
how long
I was
till
heavily
you then
involved
showed
with pot
up?
and alcohol.
Well,
Los Angeles.
So I waited a year for Leigh to finish that script, and then when we finished it, we spent another year with this group of Australian producers who really loved the script, and they, they really wanted to, they shop it around to try and get funding for it, but unfortunately they couldn't, and so that was 2 years later. And
They're
I was
here
just
tonight
so
with a class
frustrated.
action lawsuit, and they would like.
And this is where it lands on you guys' desk, right? It comes
And
there.
so 2 years later, our agent, manager Stacey Chestra said, there's someone in America, in Los Angeles, who had read the script. He loves it. You guys have got to go over there and meet up with
He's
him.
a cab driver, but he likes it.
He loves it.
Cost his dad.
And so we thought, oh man, at that time I had just finished work. I wouldn't say fired. I just finished contract work, and I had no money, and I've been out of work for like 6 months, and I could barely pay the rent. And so the idea of going all the way to Los Angeles, basically for a very expensive handshake, as we would used to say, wasn't very appealing. But then, Leigh and I, we talked about it more and thought, you know what, opportunity like this doesn't come along very often. So let's do it. Let's take a chance. Let's go over there. But before we go over there, we want to prove that I can direct and Leigh can act in it. So we picked one scene from the script, the Shawnee Smith scene with the bear trap, and we shot that. We shot that with Leigh, and we put that onto a DVD, and that little short became our calling card. And that DVD, along with the script, somehow ended up at Mark and Oren's desk. And I'll let you guys take this over.
Well, first off, I still swear we got it on VHS. I'm really serious. I really think we got
You
it.
probably no. Okay.
He was saying that the other day, yeah.
I gave the agent the DVD copy. They would have burnt it onto a VHS. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
really think our first one was a VHS.
That's awesome. So retro today, right now.
And by the way, I
Such
love that you
hipsters.
guys now say you were going to insist on directing, insist on acting. I remember so clearly looking across the table and saying, James, do you want to direct? You're like, yeah. I'm like, Leigh, do you want to act? Because we'd seen him in the short, and you were like,
Not qualified.
yeah, and you said some funny quip that was, wasn't very, convincing one way or another. It was funny, but,
Nice
but
way
anyway,
of putting
so
it.
for us it was, but I love that now that you guys were insisting.
Well, I guess it was weird for us. I mean, we come from Australia. Like, it's weird to come into that sort of. Thanks, Mike
Why not?
Technique. Dave Armstrong, the DP.
Always a man in
He's
control.
usually not concerned with sound, but
Yeah, exactly. Usually you're like, fuck the sound department. Keep rolling. I'll pick it up in post.
Usually he's telling me to shoot MOS.
That is, by the way, that's the most
That's
I've
only
ever
for
seen
the
a
two
DP
people that film
concerned for a
school
sound
here.
issue in my life.
unless something's in the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You were
what
saying?
were we talking about? Yeah. There was some funny anecdote that was going to happen.
But no, I do remember Mark and Oren literally looking at us and going, "You want to direct it? You want to act it? Let's go do it. We'll make this movie.
That was
Come
it.
and play
That was
with
it.
us."
Wait, yeah, we come from
like
Australia.
Bob
So
saying Lord of the
everybody
Rings.
says no in Australia. Australia is like Australia. There's 22 million people in the whole country. Like most of the time, if you say to somebody like, "Yeah, I want to make this horror film about two guys trapped in a room," it's like, "Oh no,
they make
why don't we
two
just go to the pub instead?"
The government,
Wouldn't that be more fun and
the
cheaper?
government only makes 2 films a year.
Yeah,
You guys
exactly.
are Philip Noyce. I mean,
It
who's
just-
going to get?
It doesn't
Who's getting
happen.
the money?
So we were just airdropped into this dynamic sort of
How long were you in Los Angeles for before you showed up
like
on our
24
doorstep?
hours.
So we came in. We were in LA for 7 days. The agent had sent our script out to different studios and producers out there that were interested. We were here for 7 days, and the very first meeting we took was with Mark and Oren at
And Greg.
and Greg at Evolution, right, management, and they said that to us. You can direct it. You can act in it. Let's go make this. And we stepped out of that meeting going, "Are these guys fucking with us? no way is it that
I mean, when you
easy."
come from Australia, if somebody says to you, "Do you want to direct this movie? Do you want to act in it? Well, let's go make a movie." Like, we're not used to that as Australians. It's like, oh,
Is
you
that a
mean
joke?
let's go to the pub?
And so
Like, that sort of American go-get-em attitude. We're like suspicious of it as people. It's
Yeah.
like, we walked out of there like dickheads. I mean, did you hear that one dickhead? Do you want to make this movie? What a wanker. Like, fuck, man, where the fuck are we? What,
And so we did a whole bunch of meetings around town. We went to DreamWorks, to Gold Circle. There was a lot of interest, but none of them were willing to necessarily let me direct it. I mean, they were more willing to take the chance with me, but they looked at Leigh and go, "Who the fuck is this guy?
Was there
He's not
anyone
Ryan
else,
Gosling."
Was there
And
anyone
so-
else they brought up to direct it? Anyone else they had a favorite?
I don't know, but we did the whole town. We did the round of the whole town, and we got to the very end and go, "Fuck, let's go back to those guys at the very start," and we are very thankful that we did go back to the very start.
Can I ask a question? What was the time frame between then, when you decided to go, and when you started to cast? When
20 minutes?
An hour?
Yeah,
I think from the time they came in,
close.
we were shooting 7 weeks later, and it would have
No,
been,
yeah, these
would have
guys
been
were
6
serious.
weeks, except James couldn't get a green card.
No, Green couldn't even get in the
Look at my
country.
visa.
Couldn't get a work visa.
I was stuck in Canada.
He was stuck in Ottawa. What they told us was going to be like 2-3 days in and out, and we did all of our prep by video, sending different scenes, sending the bathroom, sending all the sets, the actors talking to him, everything by video. And remember, this is 11 years ago at this point. It was a lot harder to send a QuickTime file.
Yeah, the
11
internet
years
wasn't that
ago.
good yet.
And he was in a hotel for what, like 16 days? I mean, I don't want
For like more than 2 weeks, and I had to literally
In
do
Ottawa.
prep. I had to talk to David Armstrong over the phone to try and prep some of the shots, and I had to talk to my production designer as well.
I think you met
And-
David.
I met
here.
him Wednesday night, and we were shooting 5 days later. I
got back just in time for 3 days of pre-production left. That's only 3 days pre-production left I had on this movie, and then come Monday we were shooting it.
Yeah, I went and picked him up 11 o'clock at night. We went and got some Thai food. I'm like, "Hi, I'm going to shoot your movie." And 5 days later, and we're looking at each other going, "Who are you and who are you?"
Well,
And so I was just going to say, and also in that the moment I got back, the very first person I needed to meet was Mr. Cary Elwes.
That's right.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate. Is this working? Hello? Is this on? Can you hear me? I got the script from these two gentlemen. They sent me the script and the DVD. I didn't get a VHS, I got a DVD. And it was this incredible scene which James described where Leigh was wearing the bear trap that Shawnee is wearing in the film. And Leigh paid for it himself, I found out tonight. You paid for it out of your own money. It was $7,000, right? American, Australian dollars? I said, that's the best $7,000 you ever spent in your life. Because I watched this DVD after reading the script, which is brilliant, obviously. And I watched the DVD, and you could tell that these guys had a definite vision for this film. There was no question about it. These guys can all attest to it who saw the DVD, that these guys had a real vision for how they wanted this film to look. And it's the reason why all of us are here. Because, people say, oh, you know what, it's an overnight success for James and Leigh. It's not overnight. These guys went to film school. They may have said they just studied Evil Dead. They studied every single horror movie you can think of, from Dario Argento, everyone. And these guys, there was no chance involved in this process. These guys worked their asses off. I never forget the first time I met you both. Was it at the farmer's market, right? Mm-hmm. Farmer's market. And it just, by the way, it's a great lesson in not to ever judge a book by its cover. I read the script and saw this video, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to meet, Marilyn Manson or someone, And these guys show up, and now you can see them. If you've never seen them before, these are the two charming, incredibly funny guys who obviously have handsome, good-looking, and clearly have a
Talented.
fascination with the dark side, yeah? And they sat down, and James, you brought a portfolio with you.
I had a picture book with me with my designs of what I wanted Jigsaw to look like, and the design of the puppet, and the design of the bed, the bathroom, and all of that, and just conceptually what I was going to do with the visual of the film.
Okay, so what few of you may or may not know is that James is an incredible artist. Besides being an incredible filmmaker and artist in that regard, he's an incredible artist himself. He opens up this portfolio, and I start to look at these incredible ink and watercolor drawings that you made of the bathroom set, of the mask, the pig mask, of the puppet. And then he turns the page, and there's a blueprint of Shawnee's mask that she wears, right? This incredible mask. And it's a blueprint. It's really detailed. It's got like screws and nuts and bolts and things. And I'm going, wow, James, this is really detailed. And he goes, yeah, it's operational. And I thought, okay, these guys are not messing around at all. And I couldn't wait to like get started. It was incredible. And by the way, just a quick note on how incredibly short. How long is a normal prep for a movie, guys? How long is a normal prep for a film for you, James? A regular prep?
Well, I think like a normal standard studio prep is
Yeah.
like 8 weeks to
Right.
2 months.
And you had
5 days.
5 days to prepare this film. Okay? We shot this in 18 days. Mr. Armstrong here never sat down on the movie. He had the camera on his shoulder the entire time. What you're looking at is a handheld movie. That's the only way we could shoot it in 18 days. Give a round of applause for this man. I mean, incredible. Incredible.
David was an ex-football player, and that was the only way I could get him to shoot most of the stuff handheld, because when you were shooting film, we were like using what?
Well, normally you'd be
1,000
handheld,
feet.
you'd be 400 foot, but I'd have to put on 1,000 foot just so I could get all the shots
Right,
you
so
wanted.
the magazine, the film magazine that went on the camera was much the biggest one, right, the heavier one, and so that camera was so heavy. And the fact that David had to handhold it throughout the entire shoot. And I remember one shot where I go, Dave, I need a close-up of the photo that Cary and Leigh kind of threw at each other, right? I need a close-up, and I want the camera to be zooming in at it. And so David's up there, he's holding the camera, and he's shaking. I go, Dave, you're too far away from the floor, and so I need you to bend your knees. And so he's bending his knees like this, and he's holding this thing that is the size of a truck, and he's trying not to drop the camera. And I go, David, stop shaking, you're not getting the shot. Focus, you're not focusing it right. And I just felt really bad, but we got the shot, right?
We got the shot. Well, and
Slightly out of focus, but it was good still. It's good enough.
And, you know, we only had 5 days together, and I don't think we talked much. I mean, James was so busy casting, looking at the sets, production design. I mean, we would just pass each other in the hallway and just kind of wave. And we didn't know each other. I mean, right? I met this guy. But, you know, to follow on what Cary was saying, James had this whole movie in his head. And we didn't have a lot. I normally, as a cinematographer, I have a minimum of a month or 2 months to work with the director. We had no time, and it was complete trust from the get-go. James would say, Dave, I want the camera to go from here to here and tilt down here. And I'd have no idea what the shot was going to be. I just had to trust that he knew. And I didn't have time to ask him what it was. I mean, like, okay, is this what you want? We got it. We'd go, and we just move on to the next. And watching the movie for me edited was a big surprise, because it was like, oh, I see what we were doing there. Oh, I get that transition, because we just had no time to talk. And it was just 18 days, and it was just squeezing it as fast as we could. I mean, it was go. But and for me, in my mind, it's like friends who got together in their garage and shot a film. And
Our garage is not that dirty of the place we shot.
but you know, and it's so big, it's so successful.
I think most of the
so-
people on the crew, maybe besides you and a couple of others, thought that they were working on the worst straight-to-video thriller of all time. They were just like, oh, this is... it was. I think a lot of them were weirded out when it actually got released in theaters. They're like, wait, that shitty movie I worked on last year?
Is that the one we did?
By the way, I love how creepy Cary made you sound, James. Like, yeah, it's operational.
Oh,
That
and,
thing's killed 6 prostitutes.
and do I remember correctly? James built the original mask, right, in Australia. But we couldn't bring it because it was just after 9/11, and customs wouldn't allow it in. They're like, what the hell is this?
Green card
By the way,
So we had to rebuild it again.
By the way, I just want to say something. That bear trap, reverse bear trap, was so heavy, and Shawnee was about 90 pounds at the time. And Shawnee has this thing. I mean, she could barely stand up. She had 100. She shot for one day. One day.
Well, and wasn't it your idea to wear it? Like, didn't you want to wear the thing that Leigh was wearing in the short?
That's the scene you want to do.
Yeah.
But
So-
but the real bear trap weighed about 20 pounds. It was completely metal. She was, I'm not exaggerating. I'm glad we didn't know that then. But she
I told
came-
Shawnee I took the batteries out, so you'll be fine.
But no, all kidding aside, she had about 103 fever. We had to talk her into
She
coming
was
to shoot.
sick, yeah.
She was sick as a dog, and we only had her for one day.
She tried to cancel. She tried to back out of doing the job.
No. She was
No,
a
but
trooper.
when we picked this, when it went down once and we picked it up, we were like, and she had it on her head. I couldn't. She was a superstar.
She sure is.
Well, there's a strong character element to this installment. You know, this is a lot of times about two guys in a room talking. You know, I mean, how did that appeal to you, reading the script? It's not just a standard slasher, you know. I mean, you do have a lot of...
Well, I was amazed at first when they said to me, okay, so basically you're going to be chained to a wall for about, you know, a little short of 18 days. And I thought, okay, cool, because I read the script. I'm like, okay, figures as much. And I thought when they said chained to the wall, it'd be like a fake chain, you know, made plastic or, you know.
Oh, no.
Figure it in CGI later. No, we were chained to a wall.
With real
1 inch
chains.
thick
Starting
steel
at 6
chain.
a.m. in the morning, and we had to time our bathroom breaks. There was only one guy. There was one guy who had the key for both of us. Remember that, Leigh? And we would just watch this guy wherever he went. We were watching him. Like if he disappeared to craft service, we're like, where did he go? Where'd he go? Where'd he go? Where'd he go? He's got the key. He's got the key.
They really were
Look at
chained.
the man with the key. And so we were trapped in there, but it was incredible because we actually had it easier than Tobin. Tobin, and it made it look easy to lie on the floor for
That
the
was
entire
Tobin.
movie. But Tobin, pick it up, man. How intense it
plays
was.
How many days on the floor, Tobin?
By the way, I just want to say before you talk.
Yes.
We offered Tobin to build a model for him on the floor. And he said, no, I just want a moving pad. I'll lay there the whole movie. And he did.
Commitment.
So Tobin, why'd you do the movie?
For the very reason he said, because there are lots of concepts in this film. But when I started to read the script and I saw there were 3 guys locked in a bathroom, I thought, wow. I mean, that's a concept. That's something, who's making movies out of 3 guys locked in a bathroom? It seemed very Godot to me. And I liked that.
Godot
you know?
was my inspiration.
Yeah, yeah. And then when I got to the room itself, wow, David's lighting. I was afraid of shower rooms when I was a kid. I mean, go at camp, to go to the bathroom at night down the hall to go in, and there was shower rooms connected to the bathrooms. I don't know what this has to do with anything. But
Sounds like one of the Saw movies.
Tell us
but
more.
the bathroom, you know, the whole bathroom aspect of it, the coldness of that.
What was the worst physical pain you got during that 18 days on the mat? Like you had to have a cramp or something. There had to be something that made you regret.
I remember there was a hacksaw that went flying and nearly hit you in the head one day.
that was
Things
close.
got a bit dicey.
That was close.
Yeah, the scene with the top of the toilet.
The toilet.
Yeah, that
That wasn't supposed to break.
That
either.
wasn't supposed to break. That just missed. We weren't using a foam rubber toilet top.
We ran out of money, so we were using
We
crew
were
members. and
using
we were
a
just
porcelain toilet top.
Low budget.
Low
Low budget, remember?
Hey, chains, toilet tops.
Was that poo in the toilet?
But
you have
did
to
you
wonder.
read the script?
Yeah, right.
It's authentic.
And I did
Wondering if-
confirm with the prop guy that it was Snickers floating in the actual toilet. So
Well,
I asked
that-
him, I said, what's in there? He goes, Snickers, I think.
That's what we tell Leigh.
I think, yeah. That's
Baby Ruth.
reassuring.
Snickers is a euphemism. But yeah, I think we do have some Twitter questions, if you guys want to answer a few of those.
But I just want to say there's one when Danny was in the film, and I had never worked with him, so that was a motivation also. When he shoots me at the end of the film, I wanted the fall to look right. And I wasn't sure I could do it. And I usually know what I can do physically, and I can't make it look like I got hit by a shotgun. And I went to you guys to double me, to get somebody to double me. And Oren, you were, no way, man. What are you talking about? What kid? I said, no, I've done a lot of these things, Oren. I know what this needs to look like. And, you know, so finally they went for the bump, you know, and we got a stunt guy to do it from the shot they use is from this side, so.
It's because I knew you could
It's
do
a
the
great
last
film.
shot in one take.
Right. Oh,
that
yeah,
story.
that
Tell that
one.
story.
That's that moment. I'm on the floor, and now we've finally gotten to this thing, and we're going to shoot it all in one shot, as I recall.
Yeah, it was
And
one.
I'm going out, and I close the door, and before we shot it, Oren, I don't know, I don't think he was talking to me, but he was talking to somebody, and I heard him, and he was saying, we gotta get this in one fucking shot, man. We gotta get this in one shot. Because he's like looking.
Everything was
We
one
have to
shot.
realize
Everything's-
to put all that back together on his head and in the skull.
Oh, yes.
It was probably
Rocky,
two and a half hours.
Rocky Faulkner.
Yeah,
Rocky
Rocky
could do it
special
kind of
effects guy from L.A.
It was two and a half hours
Right.
to put everything back on.
Yeah, to this kind of mottled, yucky thing on my head, and that no one wanted to have lunch with me. I must say.
It was weird.
Yeah, so that I got up and I walked out and I closed the door, and as I closed the door, on my right is Oren, and just the kind of murky light, that you have on a shitty set like the Lacey Street Studios, and there's Oren though. He catches his light so I can see him. It's dark as hell back there, and Oren's like, "Fuck yeah, we got it, and
We were also late for lunch.
We were late for lunch or whatever we were. We were just. It was all a time thing. Yeah.
Thank God.
We do have a few Twitter questions. So the first one comes from Jenny Horror. James and Leigh, are there any recent horror movies that you've seen and thought, I wish I'd have come up with that?
Okay, I can say this. When Leigh and I were trying to come up with a really cool idea during that period when we were cooking up in Saw, we thought of three, I thought of two other ones besides Saw. Leigh and I thought of two, and I thought of an additional one, okay? So out of those three stories, one eventually became Saw. Two people stuck in a bathroom, and there's a serial killer, all right? So we went with that one. But the other two was, one idea was a guy who sleeps at night, and his soul leaves his body, and it astral travels to like another dimension. And that became one of our other films.
Yeah.
That became
Concept.
Insidious. And the third idea that we had at the time was another story about someone, a guy or a girl. They go to bed at night and they wake up and they've got scratches all over their bodies and they don't know what's going on. And you start to realize that he's been haunted by a ghost at night when he sleeps. So he starts setting up cameras, video home cameras, to film him while he sleeps. And the whole movie is just going to shot through that found footage way.
Paranormal Activity.
Paranormal Activity.
Yeah.
So the ideas that we came up with at that period would eventually go on to become, iterations of successful horror films down the track.
That's a good answer.
It's a tough one. I mean, there's tons of horror films that I've loved recently, but I guess from a screenwriter's perspective, if you're talking about that question of, I wish I'd come up with that, it's always about a great story. And it's not strictly a horror film, but a film I saw fairly recently-ish, a Spanish film called Time Crimes. Mm-hmm. I watched that and I was like, man, wish I'd come up with that idea. That's probably the most recent film where I thought, yeah, I wish that story did not exist. And I had it.
And we got another one from Frenick. What are your personal creative processes? Anything that's become sort of ritualistic or when brainstorming, when brainstorming to get in the zone?
James
This can go
likes
for
to
anyone, too.
kill a
This-
hobo
not
with a
just you
hammer.
guys. Yeah.
Fully
hobo?
operational. Is that a...
Do you wanna?
Yeah, that is
Well,
weird.
for me, one of the things I do is I stay up really late at night, and if I come up with a really creepy concept, an idea, or a set piece, a scary set piece, if I walk around my house and it scares the crap out of me, usually that's a good indication that whatever thing I've cooked up with would work on a psychological level, and that's kind of my process. Is I use everyday elements in my life, and for some reason, I'm always projecting horror movie scenarios onto them. Like coming up, driving, even just backing down my driveway, and you look at your reverse camera, right, that is on your dashboard, and every time I'm driving home back, I look at it, I'm always picturing, like, what if I see someone just standing in the middle of my driveway, right? And then I go, boom, I hit that person, and I go, what the fuck? I come around, look around, there's no one there.
There's me, just groaning. James, you wouldn't return my calls, so I came up.
And Mark and Oren,
yeah.
you guys have a story. One of you guys got freaked out by the success when you went to Westwood Village, right? And you're trying to watch this whole thing unfold, and one of you guys had to go home.
It was me.
It was you.
We were driving through the Wilshire corridor, going to see what's the two theaters in Westwood, the big one.
The Village.
The Village, and Jeff Blake from Sony called and called me and just said, we were all in the car and said, this movie's going to do a lot more than we ever expected it was going to do. And we went to the Village to see the midnight, and it wasn't supposed to have a midnight, it was supposed to have a 10, and they actually added a midnight. And we were standing there watching the people in, and everyone's just like, we're going to go drink. I'm like, no, I got to go home. It didn't seem real. I wanted to get home, and so I just jumped in a cab and went home.
Where you can do heroin safely.
We got something from
It just didn't seem
Bloodlust,
real.
and it's for Shawnee. I can't read it though. Shawnee, after only being on the shoot for one day, what was your process for making the character come alive in future movies? Sorry guys, it's really small.
Yeah, that's weird.
Well, that was you could go anywhere, But I remember we were at an In-N-Out talking about the where you could go with her, with Amanda. I mean, really lucked into that character because someone was saying earlier, how many young women.
Yeah, it's incredible how I see so many young girls, constantly writing about Shawnee. It's all over the net. They just so look up to Shawnee's character, and I think in part to Shawnee as well, and they really relate to her. And I just think it's amazing. It's amazing that you've become the role model for so many teenage youths out there.
Yeah, it's true.
So that's super cool.
I run into that all the time.
Remember, Leigh was like,
All
yeah,
these
she
Dutch
comes in
goths
and she
on Twitter
kicks.
are like, if
What?
only I could be a serial killer's assistant.
Right.
Can you please to be helping me with this?
With this?
Yeah.
He's like, she comes in and she kicks ass and she's a villain. I'm like, oh, really? It's a love story. She comes in with groceries.
Right. Yeah, I remember talking. I mean, the interesting thing about your character was she survived. She was the only one who survived, and she was affected. So, with the sequels, it was really interesting to be like, okay, now she's a disciple of this cult leader, and especially on Saw 3, I remember you and I talking a lot about how she just had this twisted ownership of him, like he's anyone who came near Tobin's character. That was really interesting talking about all that stuff.
Yeah, and I love that the rehearsals for Tobin, I mean, he's the greatest actor you could work with because he's so scientific, every moment. And if you think about this series, it's so vast. Every moment was clear in his head. Just I don't know how he probably never slept. But he says, so Saw 3, he says, let's rehearse. I says, great. He said, okay, we're just going to walk and talk. There's probably grooves in the streets of Toronto where we walked and talked. But this was the relationship, so even though there were these, killer and cool stuff going on in the movie, right, which makes the movie cool, awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Our job, we felt, was to fill in the
Yeah,
humanness
yeah,
of it so
yeah.
that you would buy that relationship. And I says to him tonight, he comes up to me, I haven't seen him in forever. I said, I remember how you smell. Not bad, but was that alive, I'll love him forever.
Yeah, that was
We would.
That's why the girls relate to me.
Well, Tobin, this had to change your life pretty significantly. I mean, your day-to-day life is probably quite a bit different than it was 10 years ago.
No, it's not.
No one comes up to you on the street
Oh no,
and-
people.
Yeah.
That does happen to me, and people are always very nice, and it's great.
Can I just say,
Mark
we
said to me
would-
right after we made this movie, you said you're not going to be able to walk down. I forget maybe it was right after the release or something like that, or maybe it was after we got into 2. It was after 2. Yeah, you said you're not going to be able to, you're going to be very recognizable. Get used to it.
We would have a script, and Leigh wrote the first 3, and we'd think we would be done, and we'd really like the script, and we'd look at it, and we'd go into pre-production. It was always a race. And then we'd send it to Tobin. and we'd sit back and wait, and then Tobin would come in and say, can I talk to him? Like, we thought the script was really good. We're in like 2-3 weeks away from filming.
Talk to you for a minute.
Yeah, can I come in? I got a couple of ideas. And Tobin would come in with a 100-page script and 300 pages of notes.
Wow.
I have pages of notes from Tobin.
And then
On
we
Saw
go,
3.
and Leigh would just look at us like, oh, here we go again.
Can I?
It's not how it's done normally. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I just say?
It was great input.
Yeah.
Lee's like,
One of the thing that makes things for me, I love the concepts and because concept is in the world we live in is huge and so important, and to getting something made. What makes something like Breaking Bad interesting is that is Bryan Cranston's thought process. You know, the film, yeah, it's about a teacher who gets into making methamphetamine and all that. But if you can't somehow relate to him and get into what his decision-making process is, I think that's what you want. That's what actors do. You want to see what the decision-making process is, and that's what's most interesting. All the rest of the stuff is going on at the same time, and obviously a Saw movie is not, some historical period piece. But if you can add that layer to all the wonderful special effects, the incredible lighting, the locations, the script, the concepts that were in the script, then the actors, you need to believe those people. I'm going to say Breaking Bad again. Those, the brother-in-law who was I forget what his name is. I was in the firm with him. What's his name? Dean Norris. Yeah, and but so the environment to collaborate. It wasn't always easy because once you start to shoot, you can't get the director's time, and. So Darren, but he had Greg in Saw 2. And so that's my point anyway. Everything, I wanted to introduce that idea that the decision-making process on the part of the wife of Bryan Cranston, you see it's character and relationship. And you can do that in a horror movie. You just have to care enough to do it.
Well, I think we're out of time, but I want to thank everyone. I want to thank Tobin, Dave, Leigh, James, Shawnee, Cary, Mark, Oren. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
10th anniversary. Thanks, everyone, for coming out.
Thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Very much.
Thank you.